Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Today, I wanted to share some of my truth about anxiety and depression. I'm going to focus really on anxiety and depression in general, but some of it will relate to my experience in recovery. Reading a little bit about anxiety and depression from Fuck Feelings by Dr. Michael I. Bennett and Sarah Bennett, they say, some people feel anxious all the time and just can't shake it, even when they're wrapped in love and security. Other people experience sudden bursts of fear called panic attacks that can come out of nowhere, last hours, and drive strong, sane people into thinking they're dying, even when they know they're not. And some people can't stop feeling jumpy and spooked long after they've experienced trauma, be it a car accident or time in combat. Depression and anxiety are basically step siblings. One can cause or feed on the other in the same person. They sometimes respond to the same medications, and both can keep coming back off and on throughout a person's lifetime. Now, it's really easy for people who either have not experienced depression and anxiety, clinical depression and anxiety. It's really easy for people who haven't experienced that to prescribe the fix for those things and to imagine that they're things that should be easily gotten rid of. The fact of the matter is, anxiety and depression that are felt by people clinically, that are issues that people have to seek medication therapy for. These are not things that are easy fixes. They're not things that can just be taught through in a couple of sessions with a therapist and then be gotten rid of. And they're not the kinds of things that are just byproducts of the way we live on a day-to-day basis. They are deeply seated biochemical reactions to the world around us. And it's very difficult for the individual to understand where they're coming from, much less try to come up with a resolution for them. So we have to be very sympathetic with people who are experiencing anxiety and depression, especially if those people are also trying to recover from a substance use disorder. I am one of those people. Anxiety and depression, depression in particular, has been part of my makeup since I was, I think the first time I recognized I was depressed was when I was 10 years old. Went to a psychologist and was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Then throughout my teen years, I dealt with that off and on in addition to depression. And then in my early 20s, things got better, and then toward my mid-20s, right around the time when my active addiction really started picking up, I started experiencing panic attacks. For those who have never experienced a panic attack, the best way to describe it is that your brain convinces you your death is imminent. Your death is about to happen. And for me, that came in the form of heart attacks. I felt that I was having a heart attack. I would get tightness in my chest. I would even get left arm feeling numb. I would even get chest pains sometimes. And then, but what I noticed was that my first instinct when I got that kind of feeling was that I had a lot of pent up energy inside of me, and I wanted to go like run, like literally go for a jog to get all this energy out. And in fact, most people who are having heart attacks don't feel like they should go for a jog to help it. So that was one of the things that helped me recognize there's something mental going on here that I need to seek treatment for. And The problem with anxiety and the depression is that people who have not experienced these things don't have a solid understanding of how difficult they are to deal with, because a lot of times the mechanism of these things defies logic. You get anxious, you get a panic attack at a time where everything's going fine. In fact, some of the times where I would be most anxious would be during times where things were going okay. I didn't have a reason to be anxious. But then all of a sudden, I would feel a shortness of breath, a tightness in my chest, and boom, I'm in the middle of a panic attack. So, what do we do about these things? Well, all I can talk about is my experience. And I went to doctors for years trying to address these issues without telling them the full truth about what was going on in my life, which was I was self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. I was drinking to help ease the anxiety. I was drinking to help escape from the depression. And I knew that the drinking was also causing depression, because one of the symptoms of my hangovers after a big binge was that I felt incredibly depressed. So I knew that it wasn't helping me, and yet I continued to do it. And I didn't tell the truth to my doctors, because I knew one of the first things they would say is, you need to stop drinking. And if you can't do that on your own, you need treatment for it. I didn't want that. And so I felt like I could handle that part of it. They just needed to figure out the rest. And that's not how it works. You have to deal with the whole person. You have to deal with everything going on in their lives. And so once I did reach a point where I was honest about with someone, and this was after I hit bottom and I went to treatment. Once I started being honest about everything that was going on, a few different things happened. I got medication tailored to my specific situation. And I got in a good relationship with a psychiatrist that I could be 100% honest with. I hadn't really had that for almost 20 years of my life. So that was really important. Two, I got off of all addictive substances, including the sleeping pills that I had been taking. I had been taking sleeping pills. I had been abusing them, and I got off of those. So that was also important. So I got all my medications. I've got a professional I'm seeing on a regular basis to do med checks. And then I got into cognitive behavioral therapy as part of my treatment. That was huge for me, and I was very blessed with an awesome counselor who really taught me through how to use cognitive behavioral therapy to think through some of the big problems that were causing me so much anxiety and a lot of work-related stuff. Cognitive behavioral therapy really helped me look at the fears that I was facing and how I could think through those fears without obsessing about them, how I could productively think through those fears without obsessing about them. So that was a great thing about cognitive behavioral therapy. And then the last part was that I followed that up with working the steps of AA. And it doesn't have to be AA. It can be any other program of recovery. But in working the steps of AA, one of the things that we do is we look at fear in our lives, and we break it down in a very similar way to how cognitive behavioral therapy breaks down fear, our reaction to fear, the genesis of fear in our lives. And so those things coupled together helped me start to understand how to productively deal with fear on a daily basis in my life. By doing that, I entered a phase of life, and this started, I'm a little over 20 months sober now, where I have not had anxiety problems. I've had fear in my life, but it hasn't been abnormal fear. I don't think it's been regular fear. And I haven't dealt with anxiety. I also have not dealt with depression, and that's a little bit of a different topic. Although, as they say in this book, depression and anxiety are like step siblings, which I definitely can agree with. But that's the way that I addressed anxiety through my recovery. And it's important for people to know that one, anxiety is not just something that you wish away, or that you go see a counselor for a couple of times and then it's gone, or that you just prescribe medication for. In fact, a lot of times the medication can cause problems, especially if you're an addictive personality like I am. Anxiety is something that it is deep seated for a lot of people, and the solution has to be a working solution, and that it's something that you don't just go and get treatment and then you're cured. You go and find out how to work a method. You find out a process for addressing anxiety, and then you apply that every day of your life. So, like many things we see in recovery, the way that we handle something like anxiety, for me, it's been a daily task, daily work, and it's something that the work has been awesome. I could not have asked for a better way to learn how to deal with it, but it's not a one time you're done type of cure. It's something that you learn how to bear the burden of having a brain that does this kind of thing by learning the methods to deal with the results, by learning the methods to deal with the anxiety. That's it for today. I will probably talk some more about anxiety, depression tomorrow, because I really feel like these are two things that are very misunderstood. They can be very overwhelming forces in the lives of the people who deal with them, and I think it's important to not underestimate that when we're talking about them. So in the meantime, have a great day, and I'll be back here tomorrow with more.